5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are recording. All right, go right ahead, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diane and Ryan. Thanks for organizing. It's great to see everybody here at the Oklahoma City Meetup, at least virtually. I'm normally in Oklahoma City, as I mentioned earlier. I'm in California for this month, so excited to be here, and then excited to be back in Oklahoma City soon. Just a couple of key stats I want to share about Avio Consulting and our partnership with MuleSoft, the work we've done in this space. So we've been a Mule partner since 2016. Avio's been a partner of the year 2 different times, in 2018 first as a solution partner of the year, and then again in 2021 as the America's Emerging Partner of the Year. In 2020, Salesforce actually made an investment in Avio Consulting to grow our work specifically in the MuleSoft ecosystem through Salesforce Ventures. So Salesforce identified Avio's best practices and said, we want more of our customers to be working with Avio and using best practices like them, because these customers tend to be so successful and they tend to expand because of that success. We've worked with more than 70 different MuleSoft clients on more than 300 projects. And something that our marketing team looked at earlier this week is that I think we've had more than 80 or 90 successful deployments at our clients on these various projects so far in the first half of this year, either new APIs or enhancements to APIs or go lives at specific sites with projects. And because of all that success, we've have about an 80% retention rate of clients from one year to the next. That means our clients find that the work of people like Juan Cruz and others, what they're doing is so valuable that they want to keep those folks around to keep working on their key and crucial projects. When we polled our clients in January, we had a 100% client satisfaction rate. So everyone was happy and excited about work. A couple things about our delivery capabilities. Most of our work is on the MuleSoft platform. We also expand into custom software development with some of our clients. And then we have a couple specific partnerships to deliver more niche services. We do some work in the retail point of sale space through a partnership with a company called Mad Mobile. They have a Salesforce ISV product that facilitates rapid point of sale modernization. We also have a Salesforce partnership with Rose Tree Solutions. They provide solutions specifically in the retail consumer goods space that are distinct, and a top 3 partner, I believe, in RCG for all of Salesforce core. And then we also have partnerships with companies where we can actually deliver SAP services as well at our clients. And so we're very excited to have that recently set up and begin offering that to many of our clients. We can work strategically, we can work tactically and implement, and we can provide ongoing support. If anyone is interested in learning more about any of Avio's offerings, we'd be happy to talk more about all of that. Some of the things we're most excited about these days are really helping to set up and guide the direction of some of our clients' MuleSoft implementations by actually setting up and managing their C4Es with them. So all that being said, we're Avio Consulting. I got it, I think, on this arm and on the shirt too. So I'm all the way logoed up. So appreciate the opportunity to be with you all today. Excited to hear from Juan Cruz. If y'all have any questions about Avio, our services, how we can help you out, please let me know. You're on mute, Diane, but you seemed very excited.
Still muted.
Yeah, you're muted in the Meetup software.
And while Diane's getting unmuted, I'll also say a special thanks to Ryan, one of our Oklahoma City organizers, for introducing me to the whole MuleSoft world. So thank you, Ryan, for that.
It's good to see you guys flying high. I'll see you at Dreamforce.
Yes.
Are you going to unmute, Diane, or should I'll just take it from here. She's doing miming. So my name's Ryan Haig. That's what the company Haig Software is named after. I've been uniquely part of the MuleSoft community since there was one. We formed in 2015 as a MuleSoft partner, working with professional services. We really do. We've always been. We've chosen to be part of MuleSoft community and to use and to promote the MuleSoft software, because I really believe that MuleSoft has got the right idea about how to do IT in the world. Really, MuleSoft enables you to connect whatever technology you need to your business, regardless of the vendor, regardless of how old or new it is. I was working with a client recently, a government client with a 40-year-old non-IBM mainframe and connecting it to a Microsoft Azure Cloud resource. So MuleSoft is really the equalizer. And so Hake Software has been a part of MuleSoft because we've been a part of what we believe technology is about, which is enabling you to use whatever tools you think are most important to make your business successful. So we also do, like, great friends with Avio. We've partnered with Avio. We believe we help businesses and we help people. We also have a partner, Integration Quest. Diane is the CEO of that. That enables you and people like you to learn how to do that kind of integration yourself. We think MuleSoft is an excellent power tool to use all the other tools in the marketplace. So I'm happy to help you. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. You may have noticed I'm being very active there on just trying to help you guys learn the dark arts of Mule with the certification questions. And I'm learning what people need help with too, by some of the questions are right and wrong. So so really, I don't have like my community participation, my company participation, it's all mixed together. I'm here because I love this technology. So welcome. Let's get into the important part. Let's get into Juan Cruz's secrets.
Sounds great. Did my sound recover?
We hear you.
Yes.
Yay. Sorry about that. Crazy things going on over here. At any rate, yes, we are so excited to have Juan Cruz with us today. This is actually the Secrets of Dataweave Part 1. Hint, hint. We're going to be sharing some exciting things at the end of the presentation about Part 2. With us today is Juan Cruz. Juan Cruz, as you know, we've already mentioned that he is a senior software engineer at Avio, and with a host of, look at his multiple certifications. He's diligent about his career. 13 years in integrations, yay! Comes to us with a deep experience in everything that he does for the MuleSoft, for Avio as far as that's concerned, as well as a mentor in the MuleSoft community. So he's been very active the last couple of months or so. And I guess, Juan Cruz, I'll let you share a little bit about what you've been doing in the Latin community also to promote at some of those events as well. So I'm going to pass this over to you. So welcome, Juan Cruz. Welcome, and share with us what you have for us today.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, well, I've been working with the community in the last, I would say, 2 years. I've helped with several these big meetups that are organized by the community to share a lot of not only information, but also contacts and knowledge and fun stuff across the different communities also, because we're in the last one in the Latin America, I don't remember the name, but there was a community conference that it joined cross communities. We were presenting not only MuleSoft, but also Slack, Tableau, Salesforce, and I'm helping with that. I like being a moderator, and I also been talking in meetups, specifically in the Buenos Aires group. This is my first meetup in English, so I hope everyone feels comfortable with my language.
Yes, you're doing great already. You're very clear,
okay.
So you're doing great. Do share your screen when you're ready. And,
yes, I am about to do that.
Absolutely. And so thank you for your work in that community. I know it was very exciting to share any of the links if you'd like. I'll see if I can find it in the meantime, because I believe there was some links from that as well. But all yours.
Okay, well, I hope everyone likes the presentation as I like it doing it. It was really fun. I tried to find a different perspective to tackle the Dataweave concept that we have, that in a way, they are a bit hidden. Most of the people that start with Dataweave, they start with a background of structured programming rather than functional programming. And that, in a way, deviates part of the power that this language is giving to us. So in a nutshell, the agenda, I'm about to talk very quickly about the basic structure. I will give a high overview of the functional concepts, the functional programming concept we are going to be talking, and mapping those in Dataweave code. So that way we can have like a one-to-one correlation between them. I will also give some talks about the modularization, the different options we have. I will be doing a demo with Visual Studio and some concept we can apply of what we have talked. I have a couple of Dataweave tips, and of course, we will have a question and answer section. So, from the structure of the Dataweave script, what we have, it's a string, it's a script, and separate by the 3 dashes. On the top part, we have the header. One of the most important things is that it will define the data type we're going to get as an output, but it will also help us to set up different things like the Dataweave version, some properties on the readers and writers that we can use based on what the language is providing us. And one of the most important things, that it will let us define variables, functions, and a lot of things that we will be using in order to have a clear and reusable code there. Then on the body, what we will have is what it will generate as an output. Think that the body is telling us what the script will do. So Dataweave could be something like this, very small and tiny, that it will get whatever it came as an input and transform it into JSON. Or it could just make some mappings. It could create a different structure using the input information. But then it can evolve. You can have a function because maybe that transformation is something you want to reuse in that script. So you create function, or even one step further, you can create variables that you can use later. And sometimes those variable definitions are variables that you will end up using maybe more than one time, or those variables that you define in one place can let you define the logic that you will end up doing in your body of the script. So from functional programming perspective, we're going to talk about pure functions, first class functions, high order functions, lambda functions, and function compositions. These 5 concepts are the main functional programming concepts you will see around the internet. If you look at, over Google with this, or even open with ChatGPT, that's also a nice way to find things. You will find that these are not only for Dataweave, they are for a lot of languages. Haskell is one of the most functional programming, very famous, but you can also see these concepts in JavaScript. Now Java in the latest version is also applying all these concepts in order to make the code easier to write and probably to read. Basically, we write code so not only us can read them. The idea is to have code that other developers can read. And so from the pure function concept, pure functions are the ones that, based on an input, create the same output. And more important of all is that they don't have any side effects. Okay, so meaning, as I don't know, is my mouse visible here?
Yes, we can see your mouse.
Perfect. So what's happening here? We have one execution of this function. Oh, and give me one step before. In Dataweave, we have 2 different types of notations. We have the infix notation and the prefix notation. Infix notation is the one that it requires 2 parameters to be written in this way, meaning first parameter is on the left of the function call and second parameter on the right. We want to write the same in a, let's say, structured way. It will be written like this. We will open parentheses and put the 2 parameters like we always did in many other programming languages. Infix notations will give us a lot of advantages when we see the next concepts. But I wanted to bring this into the picture because this will help us to understand and improve a lot of things. Going back to the pure function, what does it mean? It means that when we have the payload as 1, and we call the function, and it will create the result, the execution number 1, it will not be related to execution number 2. So they will run in separate way. They do not share anything. And the concept here is ensuring us that it will create an output based on the input. Meaning if we put the same input every time, we will get the same output every time. So you have to keep that in mind. That is very important. And there will be no side effect, meaning that nothing that happens here will affect any other execution. You can introduce side effects if you do things that are not recommended, like using lookups or things that break let's say, the script execution and run something else. But if we are in the context of just running Dataweave code, pure functions means 1 input, 1 output, and no side effects. Now, the next concept is first-class function. First-class functions means that in this programming language, functions can be treated as objects or variables in our case, meaning they have the same privileges. They are in the same step. You can have either a function or a variable, and you can send them through as a parameter within the function. So, for example, in here, what I've done, I declare this function as a variable, meaning we have the function declaration in here, and then the variable declaration using the lambda function, that's the anonymous function declaration, to declare it as a variable. So with this concept, we can send functions as parameters within functions. So that's very powerful because it means, like in this example, we can define a function like in here, increment 1, and pass it as a parameter in this function. So what we're going to do in the process array, we're going to walk through the array and apply the function received as a parameter. So we can define any other function. We can make the function selection dynamic, and this guy will be generic and apply whatever we are sending in here. In some other languages, like JavaScript, for example, just to keep the concept safe in a strong way, the functions are also object, and you can extend the function with object properties. See, no, I don't think it's a good practice, but you can do it. So think that first-class functions means that we can send them and treat them as variables. The other concept that is even more powerful is the higher order function. It means that we can have functions that can be returned as results of another function. What this means? It means that you define the function receiving parameters, and it, as a result, it will give you another function. An example of that is this guy, the increment function. If you check the result is a lambda function definition. It has only 1 parameter, and then it equals, and it defines again a function. And how do we use it? Well, we can use this like here. I did a very simple example that I can define the increment 1 or the increment 2 function because I know what I have to increment. And I am reusing the increment function with 1 and 2, meaning I'm setting the first parameter in the definition of the function, so I don't have to define it every time below. So if I have to increment by 1, whatever I need to increment, I can reuse that function. And if I have something change in the structure that I am receiving, I can apply that change in here. So it is propagated across all the different functions. Things that these concepts help us to create code with less redundant stuff, code that we can change in one place and then impact all the places we are expecting to be impacted. And I think one of the examples I always bring, or it came into my mind, is that when you start in each case creating the copy of the code or applying the function or the transformation you need in a separate way, when the input changes, you have to work like 10 times. But if you are reusing based on that, instead of working 10 times, you work only one and impact all of them. And in the sample of the script that I created, the input is just one. I am reusing the process array function I explained before, that is walking through the array with the map function and applying the function. And then with each of these inc1, inc2, I am using the increment function that is in here. Then I process the array that is walking and passing a function. And then I say, okay, for the first element, increment 1. For the second element, increment 2. And the other one, increment 5. And this was just a direct call to that high order function. So as a result of the element 1, the first increment 1, 2, and 5. Pretty straightforward. But the key here is that I was reusing process array. Process array doesn't know what he's going to apply to that input data. And I am defining what to apply in each case by these functions. And in this function, I'm also reusing the increment function to define how much I want to increment that value.
Juan Cruz, hang on. Go back to slide 8.
Yes.
There's a question. Yep. The question was, in this increment function where you pass 1 and a parameter, what is the use of the parameter?
The use of the parameter in here is this parameter is this increment 2 parameter. So check this. Increment function is defined with one parameter. But then when we have the equal in here, we are defining the second parameter. So as you can see, as for example, between the process array parameter, it receives 2 parameters. You have the parameters separated by a comma. In this case, we have each parameter within different parentheses. So we are setting the parameter in a separate, we can say, kind of scopes. So first one will go as increment 1, and the second one will go as increment 2. And in here, if you check, I am sending increment function 5. And the call of the function is going to be, it's going to be triggered by this guy using the $sign as the second parameter, as the increment 2.
That's good. It says he got it. There's a name for that in functional languages. They call that currying.
Currying function, yep, yes. That is correct.
Thank you. I think you answered the question.
Perfect. Any other question, or we're good?
We're good.
Perfect.
Yep.
Then, using all these concepts we have been talking, the idea is to use this function composition. Like in mathematics, you can wrap different functions one within the other, so you can apply a different chain of changes on something to get the result you are looking for. And in here is where you look the power of the infix notation versus the prefix notation. I know that sometimes prefix notation is required because you need to pass more than 2 parameters. It's based on the domain, on the use case. Sometimes you cannot avoid it. But every time we can, I would suggest to go to the infix notation, because that way you can use the power, and you will see with this why I'm referring about power. Check this input. It has 3 elements. It's an array with 3 strings. And if we read this line of code, we're saying, okay, filter and check that the element that contains 1. So far, so good. Anyone can read this. Then, and here it's like, okay, map is to walk through each element. And then for each element, uppercase and add the index as part of a string. So if you have to think what it will do, it will get this guy and this guy. It will do the uppercase and add the index. So that's what we have in here. If you have to write the same function, but with the prefix notation, first we need to add a helper function to apply the last transformation, or create the lambda function in here with this. Then we need to also say, okay, we're going to walk through the array we have in here and apply this function. And within that array, we want to filter. Then we give the array and the condition, in this case, that is, I declare the function as a variable, we want to apply to that filter. So 2 helper functions in order to read or do the same thing we are doing with the infix notation. And tricky thing here is that we are going from the inside to outside. So first we apply the filter to this guy, and then we do the map using this other guy. So that's the main important thing about infix notation, and that's why I encourage using that. And then around the function composition. Function composition is the chain of the different functions we're going to be applying to that input to create the output. And always remember this, the variables in Dataweave are immutable. So whatever you get as an output is a new variable that it was created from scratch based on whatever it was as an input. Remember the pure function concept. With an input, I get an output. And that's a fact. So the string I have as an input in here won't exist as a result, because it's going to be transformed, and within that transformation, it's going to create a new variable. And then for the next operation, it's going to do the same thing, and so on. In the infix notation, it's more visible to see infix notation. Got the concept with function composition?
I think so. There was a question a little bit ago about performance. Which will be faster, infix or prefix?
I don't think there is a difference between performance, basically because we're going to call the same function just in a different way. And Dataweave is also doing the optimization using this concept of the pure function, that they don't have side effects. They create this thing of the variables not being immutable. And I don't think there is any difference between the infix and the prefix notations with perform, but I can investigate more.
Thank you. Yeah, that matches my experience.
Okay, here I wanted to highlight about the core function. These are, think them as tools. There are a lot of function that performs a lot of things. I want to make it more basic language. So they help you to create the outcome you are looking for. They are focused on data transformation, and you don't need to import them. There are a lot of also another tools that are around even in the Dataweave, let's say out of the box language, but you need to import them specifically. In this case, the core functions are the functions that you can call, like, for example, the map, filter, and things like that they are already there, and you don't need to include any special import clause to use them. So they are there, and you can just go ahead and use them. So think them as the tools you have already in place, and it's a very important, I would recommend to go to the documentation, give an overview to them, at least know that they are there, because you don't know when you're going to need them. Or probably you maybe are doing something custom and it's already there, and the problem could be solved in a faster way and more standard, of course. Okay, modularization. The idea of modularization is to promote code reusability. That's why we create modules, we split the code in a way we can read it easily, and also if we have to use it again, reuse it, of course. In the scripts that we create, we can define almost, I would say, everything: types, function, variables, even small chunks of codes, and we can reuse them across the different locations. Very important, we need to, the module will be, at least in one of the cases, in the resources folder, and we will use the name of the module followed by colon to import the different things. We can import all the elements that are defined in that module, meaning import like asterisk from my module. Or if we don't want to import everything, so the script is going to be smaller, and at some point it should impact with performance. I haven't done myself some test around that, but probably based using just logic, if you have a bigger script, it will take longer than a smaller script. So if you want to just import whatever you want to use, you can specify the element or item or variable or function you want to import by naming that, like I put in here. The import clause is the one that you use in the header to include whatever you want from that module. So within one API itself, isolated in one Mule app, you can create a module that it can be reused in different locations of the Mule flows within that API. So we can create the module in the resources folder. That's why I was just taking a step with that. And then after you created the module in here, you can import it anywhere in the flows by using the import clause and, of course, specifying from where. And when something very important, as you can see, utils in here is in the root folder, and modules is within, sorry, this module is within the module folder. So if you don't want to use anything, you can drop it here, but I don't recommend. I would always recommend use modules, but I wanted to highlight that. You can call it without any prefix if it is in there. But if it is in here within the module, you have to use the prefix to specify where the script is. Other option, and this is newer than the previous one, people that use Mule 3, it's used to this. And platform. Powerful tool is to use library module with Dataweave code, meaning the life cycle of the Dataweave code in this case is on a side track than the API itself. And why I'm saying this? Because you can create different versions of just the Dataweave transformation you need in your use case, evolve it, have specific unit testing of that Dataweave code, and then you can import it in the API you need it. And not only one API, you can import it in as much as APIs you need it. So again, going back to the concept of reusing code, with this, we have a very, very powerful tool to start dividing the different responsibilities. Okay, transformations can go in one track, the integration itself goes in another. It happens many times to me that when creating the main logic of the API, we can test a couple of things, but sometimes all the edge cases of the data, of the transformations, they ended up, or I ended up creating like a lot of MU to check if the transformation was right. And we have this. I would just create the library, all the different set of tests to check that the transformation is behaving and accepting all the different edge cases I saw in the data, and then put that in the API. So I think this is a very good enhancement or evolution of the platform with Dataweave, that it will give us a lot of power. And of course, I always talk about responsibilities. This will split the responsibility from the API itself. The API is having a lot of, we can say, more responsibilities or more problems, whatever, it depends how you want to see it. And with this, we can concentrate and focus on the data transformation. From the execution context, meaning we talk about Dataweave code, but we have different places where this code will run. First one, and it's the one that everyone knows, is the MuleSoft runtime. And without that, you don't have any integration, you don't have any API, you don't have anything. Then we have something very powerful, and I think this is something we're going to talk at the end of the presentation. The CLI scripts. You can use Dataweave as a CLI, and that's something very powerful for things that I think they are not exploited yet. There are a lot of hidden powers there that could be very useful for a lot of use cases, more related with probably pipelines, automations, and things like that. Even if you are in a day-to-day work with data, you can use Dataweave to check a lot of data from CSV files or things like that, and you want to transform or check even logs, Dataweave could help you. We have the playground. That's now I would say, the must-go place when you are developing Dataweave or VS Code. I'm in the last, I would say, 6 months, I've been using more VS Code than the playground, and that's because I found it more faster. I could work with bigger payloads, and it seems more comfortable for me. I can keep saving the file in my disk and then come back and continue working. And if I forget and close the tab, I don't lose anything. And that's very important. And something new I learned in the last week and I checked that this is still in beta, Dataweave is going to be running in Apex 2. For that one, I don't have too many information, but they allow a couple of modules of the Dataweave stuff that you can run. And of course, it's going to be very disruptive and powerful for the Apex developers. Questions so far before starting with the demo?
And we had a few questions, or really more so comments or conversation. One of them from Ugandhar, he mentioned we have different resources on site, offshore, etc., with different understanding levels of whether we should use infix or prefix. Anything will be okay. Do we need to understand the team's dynamics or decide which one is which? And we've kind of answered some of that to him. It depends on, Sonali had mentioned, it depends on the individual. I also brought in if you plan to chain your functions, and I don't know if you're going to cover the need of using infix for chaining your functions. But if you want to talk about that just a little bit, that would be great.
Okay, sure. Well, based on, first of all, if you have that kind of scenario, my recommendation always is to create certain guidelines, at least from the project perspective. So that way you can give everyone, regardless the understanding and everything, the way you want everyone to be working. It doesn't matter if sometimes the developer doesn't have the knowledge or to use one way or the other. But my recommendation is at least to try to align everyone in the same way. And of course, always having the onboarding documentation and guides for the first steps of the developers. It will be very helpful in that case. About chaining, yes, chaining the functions with the infix notation was what we were doing here. We chain the filter function with the map function, and then with this tool, yes, filter and the map. So that way, and I think you can see that better in here. That way, and this is what I was referring with the first concept about your functions, that this output, the script, and let me maybe enforce one concept. The script or the Dataweave language is think of creating an output. So every statement you have in Dataweave, it will create something. So you cannot store, for example, like in any other language, the result of what you run in a variable. No, the output, meaning what is in the body, it will create something. It's a statement that it will create an output. Having said that, you can think of this part as the first output that is going to be the array filter by this function. Then that output is going to be walked through with the map function, and here's the chain, and we will apply to each element in that output this function. And that's why we have an array with this result. So infix notation will help us to at least write code in a way that you can read it in, I would say, not a fast way, but at least in a more understandable way, so that not only the one that is writing the code, that also everyone else could understand it.
Very good. Yes, thank you. Appreciate that.
You're
And then
welcome.
Krishna also said, can we process .dwl files, which was in the source main resource, without using dynamic evaluate component? So that may be referring, yeah.
Here, I am not using dynamic reference. I'm just using direct import. I know what you're referring for. You're referring for the dynamic transform processor that you can dynamically select what file to use. And I've been working on that in the last days, that I have a similar, let's say, flow execution that I need to process different elements. And for each element type, I need to apply a different Dataweave transformation. So I grab that transformation and use the dynamic transform. And in the dynamic transform, of course, I put that value that I extracted from the payload and create the name of the file that it was here, and then dynamically selected what I wanted. But in here, I'm not using that. In here, it's just the plain transform processor and just importing whatever I want.
Excellent. Well, interestingly enough, another one of your coworkers, Mark Knox, did do a presentation at one of our other meetups using the dynamic evaluate. So there is a recorded version of that in one of our previous meetups, but we're also talking about part 2 of this segment. And maybe that would be a good thing to include in that too, Juan Cruz, to handle that. Sure. It's very, very powerful to use that. Yeah. So Krishna, thank you so much for the comment. Yep. We're good. That catches up all of our comments or questions.
Perfect. All right. So the demo. For the demo, okay. Can everyone see Visual Code?
We can see the meeting. We're on your screen of the meeting.
Let me change the window. Here it is. Can you see now
correct, yes. Visual Studio.
Perfect. Okay. So basic stuff first. We have the 3 dashes, the header, where we are defining the Dataweave version, the output type. We can always change the output type with XML and good thing of Visual Studio is that if you enable the auto preview, it will just start doing the transformation we are working with. That's pretty nice. Let's go back to the JSON. We can create JSON, Java. There are a lot of different types that you can use. And that's something we can talk also in the other code. Then I am defining one variable. Think that in here, most of the people is used to use the payload variable, or let's say the payload itself. And this is for the context when you are running your transformation in a flow. When you are not in a flow, like in this case, you don't have the payload. But in order to keep everyone aligned in the same page, I created a variable called payload, and I'm reading a file using the read. This read URL is a core function, so I don't need to explicitly import it. I can just directly use it. I am reading this file that is in my resources, this XML, and I am telling me, hey, this is an XML. So what it's doing is storing in this payload the content of this file, and then it's applying the transformation into a JSON. And here it is. Okay. The objective. My objective is to create a transformation that creates a different header, that it divides the addresses, the ship to and the ship from, in something like this, because in here I have only one line for the address for each ship. And then I want but filter by the unit of measure. I want to filter only the unit. This is just an example. It's not covering any, I would say, specific use case. Oh, something important. I want the amount. This is just an example. So if you receive a purchase order, you don't want to remove line items for sure. You want to have them on. So the idea of this, or at least most of the time, every time I need to start working, you will see that most of the people will end up like, okay, this is what I need. So got it. Now I need to start populating this structure with the transformation itself. And how do we do this? Well, we grab the payload and we start like, okay, I need to get the ID. So with the payload, we can fetch the header. Now I need to remember the structure. So to do that, we will this and hide this guy. So, oops. Since it's an XML, what we're using as an input, we will have the header. And if you check what had happened is, okay, I have whatever I want and all the content in place. So we need to start walking through the elements until we fetch what we want to fetch. And this is very powerful because this, let's say, path we created, if you have the same structure but in a different input type, you can use it and the transformation is going to be the same one. Meaning, if we get this structure instead of an XML, we get it from a JSON, the transformation can also be reused. Basically because Dataweave doesn't care about the input. It just cares about the structure of what you are sending. That's one of the most important things of this language. We only need to focus on the transformation itself and not on how the data is going to come. If we have to parse it, if that's, we can say out of the box, that's taken care by Dataweave, and we care about the transformation itself. So using something like it, I can create like different parts, and it will start populating what I need. I can continue creating like all this stuff, but that's not the idea. The idea is to start using the functional programming concepts that we have been looking at. So that's why I have my cheat sheet. For the header, I ended up, creating what we were looking for. In this case, let's comment this guy. Let's comment this first. What we have, and this is the process I was about to doing before. I start with the ID, I start with the name, and the currency. These are the three basic data I could extract from the header itself without doing anything else. Then we need to create a ship to and ship from. In order to do that, and since I already knew that the structure of these guys was going to be similar, I created a function, a helper function, to process each ship info, meaning that with one function, I could create the structure and send each information and create and reuse the code. So if I need to add something else into that address, I can do it. And this is why code reusability is so powerful, because we can even say continent. Maybe it doesn't apply yet. But I updated only once. So that's why having functions, we can say in the header of the script, is very powerful, because you can start reusing code. And if you see that that code reuse, it's more across the different part of the flow, you can extract it in a module. And then if that code is reused across different API, you can extract it in a library and then import it as a Maven dependency using Exchange. Then next step was to process the lines. So let's do two things. First, I don't like having the name defined with double quotes. Then, since we are expecting an array, and we have an array as an input, in XML, this is an array because we have 1 item, 2, 3, 4 items. What we're going to do, we're going to walk or extract those items. Before doing that, I created this variable. Let me remove this with the items. So my line items are going to be these guys. And I can reuse whatever it came from there. Something to highlight in here, since it's an XML, I need to use this asterisk prefix in order to get all the elements. This is something that is, let's say, per definition by the XML, the arrays copy one and again the same item. So if you don't specify that you want to grab all the items, all the elements that are matching this structure, it will have only one. So we have this to get it all. And something very important, in JSON, you cannot duplicate, even though you can, you should not duplicate the same name like in the XML, because that's not a JSON compatible structure. Having said that, I am not matching the structure I wanted. I wanted a different structure, everything should be lowercase. Here I have capital letters. So if I want to match this structure, what I've done, I have another function that I created. That is the process item. Process item is getting one item, extracting all the information following this structure, and creating the new structure I am aiming I want to have. So in here, I do use the map and the process item function to process them. So now I have all the elements in the format I want. Before going deeper about how to process these elements, I wanted to have an aggregation of the amount. So again, I'm using another car function called sum that it will aggregate all the different amounts of my items, and my items are here. But I wanted to shorten the amount of items. I want to filter them, and I wanted to filter them by unit of measure. So in order to do that, first I created a function to filter elements in a generic. Well, we can do it this two ways. If we want to filter by unit of measure based unit, you can always go and say, okay, of all these elements, just grab the, let me do the following thing. Let's this. I always like using parentheses to make clear for me what are my different scopes. Sometimes, if you don't have the proper parentheses set, it will behave different than we expect. So this is, I would say, somehow a good practice to always divide different scopes of the different results you want to change. So as my next step, I want to filter, and I would say if UOM it's equal to, this contains empty, but I want to say it's equal to unit. Okay, got it. But what happened? This function will only work if I'm filtered by UOM, I'm looking for unit. If I need to evolve and sometimes have a parameter from the input or from another source that could be a variable or something that tell me, no, this time use UOM, next other time use quantity, or next other time use amount, and it could be dynamic based on the data, this one won't work because this one is only tied to one. So, and if I have to create a case for each value, the code is going to be a mess. So in order to simplify that, I created these three functions that it will help us to make the trick. Why? First, I created one function that is going to be filtering by field, and the parameter is the field I want to filter. And then I am declaring a dynamic a lambda function having two parameters, item and value. And then I'm doing the appliance of that filter. Instead of setting UOM like this, it's like I'm doing something like this. So it's the same way. And in order to make it more dynamic, if I want to do a filter by UOM, I can just go and say, okay, filter by UOM unit. So if you check the code, it's pretty straightforward. It will just go and read. You can read it, and it will filter by unit. If I need to filter by another element like amount, instead of use filter by amount unit, I say filter by amount, and I say, okay, 5,000, and it will filter by that. And I don't care if it is something static or not. And using this, I can create logic, define functions that it will help me to have a more readable code and use the power of the different concepts we have been talking and reusing always a lot of code. So we have 3 different functions that, of course, I could create this by doing the filter, setting the field, but I will be duplicating this one and again every time I do this. So the idea here is to think of functions in a way you can create them and make them reusable all the time. So if I go back again to filter by unit of measure and set unit, sorry, I have the output I was looking for in here. And as you can see, we check definition of variables, definitions of functions, sending functions as parameters, defining the functions based on the high order functions, and what else? And of course, the usage of the core functions. In this case, I did not import anything. I used core functions or functions that were defined in the header of the script. Okay, I think I talked too much.
No, this
Any
is
questions?
great. Yeah, this is great. This is great. Go ahead, Ryan. Were you going to say something?
I was going to agree that he is not talking too much.
Right, right. This is so, I know when you're presenting, you don't really get to see what people are putting in the chat, but this is, you're getting comments. I hope you want to go back and read them later.
Okay.
This is great. This is very helpful. Where are you going to share the recording? We want the more details. So everyone's loving it. Everyone's loving it. We did
Wonderful.
have a question. Yeah. Can you quickly touch up on the tooltip, generate Dataweave documentation that's showing in your script? Does it really generate documentation, and how does it look? And they also said, keep talking, it's good.
Okay, here you have it. Yeah, it will create the documentation. I personally don't use it yet too much, but it creates the basic structure of the documentation itself. So just go click and it will create. Here, filter by amount. No, here the URL is here, the top. And then since I click filter by amount, it created documentation.
Very nice, very nice.
It's nice, it works. I think the tool is very powerful and it provides a very good playground for testing things in a fast way, or even I am developing a lot of things even here, so it's very useful.
And we keep it. Yeah, I like the playground, but it doesn't retain anything. Like you say, this,
Correct.
you know, you close that browser and unless you've exported it, you've lost everything you were working on. So excellent, excellent. Did you have anything else, further demo, or are you?
For the demo, that's all. Now I have a couple of tips that I capture.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. First, something that I didn't use too much in the demo, but we have the do scope. The do scope is to create like inside a Dataweave, and let's do the following instead of just
when you were sharing it, when he had it up, I called it out. I said, notice the do statement, you know, but I don't know if anybody actually caught that. I did put it in the chat though, because I was like, yeah. So yeah, if you want to point that out.
Yes, the do statement is very, very useful. Why? For example, you have in here, we were talking about processing the lines, but sometimes instead of doing the filtering here, in here, I am using the filtering here because somehow I was the information that it was in here was related to what I wanted to show in here. But if you don't have this situation and this, let's do this following. Lines 2. So you have a second array of lines for whatever the reason, but you want to perform certain operations in here. I always encourage using the do scope for the following. If in this case, I want to do a specific variable for that part, then I can create a different subscope of my main script, giving us the possibility, and this was, at least for me, this was very useful in cases when the Dataweave was getting complex or you have a lot of small conditions to take into consideration, that sometimes instead of just getting the whatever you want to put in place handy, you need to pre-process. For example, if I want to consider, like, instead of, in this case, I use it by filter, but if we want to know if there is anything in here, we can always say is my line and define again another core function. And if we want, we can do this. So what's going on in here? Since it was empty, it's using my lines. So the powerful of the do scope is that you can isolate different logic sometimes and help you to create auxiliary variables so you can use them in that part of the script without making the complete script a mess. And sometimes these do scopes evolve, and then you ended up like, okay, this guy is going to be generate lines 2. Yeah, and I will create a function with the do scope. So that way it continuously evolving, and we can have a more readable code that everyone can understand, not only the writer. So the challenge maybe is not just have good documentation, but also write readable lines, write readable code.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I foresee more of that in part 2. For sure. Well, this has been great. Go ahead and share your tips, and then we're going to do, so sure. I know some of you are keeping an eye on your lunch times or whatever the case may be, and we'll get the hot tips from Juan Cruz, and then we'll do the final stages of our presentation. So this has been amazing.
Cool. Okay, well, the other tip, I just wrote a couple of tips, probably like Diane's saying, for the part 2, we will have more things to talk about, and probably I will explain with more practical things this guy. The log is a function that it's help you to trace intermediate results, meaning if you have a variable, you just put the log, it will be written in the logs, and the result of that function is the same value you put in the function. So it's something you wrap, it will write in the logs, but it won't affect the functionality. So that's very helpful to understand sometimes when you are in the runtime execution engine of Mule, or if you want to log some things when you are doing the transformations, even in the playground, logs is very useful. Something I haven't shown, but probably that's also another subject for the next goal, is to show the debugger. Most of the people is not aware that Visual Studio Code has a debugger of the Dataweave code, which for the people working with Mule 3 or older, it's like almost, I would say, heaven for Dataweave, because we are used to work with logs only, and having the debugger was like a huge step. Something also very powerful and important is the object destructor surrounding with parentheses and then with the curly braces is going to create new object and it will transform all the value keepers into one object. So it's a very powerful tool, and I would recommend to investigate more about this. And something I mentioned when I was writing the code, the usage of the parentheses, because if you use it in a correct way, it will scope the results always, and it will let the Dataweave engine to work as expected. Otherwise, sometimes if you don't use the correct, or you see something weird in the result of the execution, it's because something was not working as we expected because of the scope of the function was different than we thought. And I added a couple of links. I also include the Apex. So if anyone wants to discover or see, I also added a cheat sheet that Alex did, and it's very useful. The car functions, and of course, some basic links around Dataweave. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Well,
excellent. Yeah. And we've had the Q&A incorporated into it. So if we can get some of those links put in the chat for people, especially like your favorite ones, if you want to go ahead and pop them in the chat and read the chat in the meantime too. I'll be sure to let you take a look at that, because there's been a lot of great comments for you. And no doubt this has been incredible. You know, Dataweave is it's not completely open source yet. It's in the process of becoming open source, and I think that this is just going to be something that we need to totally skill up all the more and learn as we go on. So thank you. This has been great. We're ready to play trivia. So in the chat, I'm going to put a spacer between each of the questions. So I'm going to do question number 1. Okay, so all of your answers. Now, the way that this works, let me tell you how this works for those of you who are not familiar, is I will pose a question, and then the answers will come in, and you have to answer with either an A, B, C, or D. So be sure you put a letter, not the answer. Okay, it is important to put the letter, not the answer. And our gift cards are sponsored by Avio and Hague Software, so thank you both for that. And we do gift cards because obviously we have people across all over the world, and this way we can email you a gift card. If you were closer, we were in person, we would be giving away swag, because, you know, we love swag. But anyway, here we go. Question number 1. All right, how many parameters
What? I'm the referee.
You're the referee, yeah. How many parameters should have a function to be used with an infix notation? Oh, wait. You got to do A, B, C, or D. A is 1, B is 3, C is 2, and D is any. All right. And the correct answer is, Ryan, correct answer?
Well, the correct answer, Juan told us at the beginning, is 2, which is C, and Ramachandran is our winner.
Okay, and we will have, yeah, there you go. Mackenzie just posted. All of the winners, be sure to email Mackenzie.
Well, I have to congratulate Vanessa for having the right answer. So now you just got to do it the right way, and maybe you can. But yeah, Ramachandran won because we said it was the letter.
Yes. Aw, sorry about that. It just is for organizing and keeping things straight. We've got to have the rules. And you can't win twice. You can answer twice on, you can answer every question, but you will not be able to win more than one time. That's another rule also. All right, question 2. Are you ready? Here we go. How many functions can I pass as parameters in a function in Dataweave? Because we can pass a function as one of the parameters. How many can we do that with? 1. So A is 1. B is any. C is 2. And D is 0. And of course, the correct answer is, did we get a correct answer already? Yeah, we did. Correct answer is, Juan Cruz, you want to validate that one?
Sure, why not? We can pass any amount of functions as parameters as we want.
Congratulations, Rajesh.
Excellent, excellent. All right. All right, question number 3 coming your way. Question number 3, here we go, is when a function is a first class function. Now you got to read this one carefully. This is in a programming language. So first class function in a programming language. A, when it already getting answers. Are you sure? You better wait on this. When it flights only in first class. When it's the first function written in the code. C, when it can be treated as an object having the same privileges. Or D, when it's the first function call of a program. And the correct answer is, do we get somebody already? Juan, you want to validate that one also?
Sure. Well, the correct answer is C. When object, that's the concept we were talking. The first class function. First class function is can be treated as an object, and it has the same privileges.
Excellent, excellent. So, Mackenzie, if you put
Yeah, congratulations, bro.
excellent, excellent. Congratulations to our winners, and be sure, Mackenzie, if you want to go ahead and post your email again right now so that they can contact you, and she will take care of that. So thank you so much, Avio, and Hig Software is sponsoring the recognition and appreciation to our.
So tell them what's happening next. Yeah, we're gonna.
Oh yeah, that's coming. It's coming.
Okay.
So we Juan Cruz and Ryan will be at Dreamforce this year in San Francisco, and I have a slide telling about that. But he's going to express his appreciation for being part of this. So more to come. More to come. I'll give you some more. Now we do have a Dataweave challenge, and Juan Cruz, if you want to explain this, I've got the slide coming up. All right, here we go.
Sure.
Here is the slide on the Dataweave challenge.
The idea here, since we have this input to create the functions in order to create the desired output, reusing a lot of code, trying to create the required functions using the concepts we have seen today. And it's I would say it's pretty straightforward, but good challenge anyway to enforce and practice all the concepts.
Yes, yes. So we'll go ahead. I think the chat can handle the input and script and output.
I'm going to post it. So the meetup, I'm going to figure out what we can do on the meetup website. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to use LinkedIn because I can't think of a better place to do it. Nothing about LinkedIn. It's just, I know I can use it. I'm going to post all of this in a post on LinkedIn, and you are going to put your answers in the comments underneath it. And what your prize is, how many are we doing? 1 or 3? Probably 1.
3. Let's do 3.
So whoever, first of all, your prize is everybody can see you solve the problem because it's public, right? But whoever the first 3 are, I promise that I will post you your own post that says you are a Dataweave wizard on LinkedIn. So you are going to get public recognition as a Dataweave wizard, which I just made up. But the whole world will know that you are a Dataweave wizard if you get this challenge correct. And I'm going to run it in the playground and see if the output looks like the input. So please take a screenshot. That's how you check your work. And probably, you want to post the result. You want to check it before you post the result. So.
Absolutely. And we're going to be having a study group next Friday. We'd love for you to come to that and show us your solution and talk about it. If you'd like to join us, that will also be posted on LinkedIn. Now we are having part 2. Juan Cruz has already committed to a date in October because we do have the event coming up at Dreamforce. And so you will have part 2 of this. Many of the things we've already talked about. We'll have the agenda posted out for you to save the date. So be sure to save the date for October 10th. And we look forward to having a deeper dive, part 2 coming up. So next up to what's next, be sure to let us know. There is a survey that'll be coming your way in your email about this event. let us know how you liked it. Let us know what you recommend, what you want us to cover. You know, we're here for you. Excited about that. And also too, this is the study group I was telling you about. Be sure to, it is not posted on the site yet, but it will be posted by end of day today. And so we'd love to have you join us for that. We're here to help you along. So this will be a lot of fun we'll cover the winners for the Dataweave, as well as any questions for certification you have. It's an open forum. We answer your questions. You know, we do mock questions. We are using, Ryan's using Chat GPT to generate some exam questions. Really, it's a lot of fun. So we take them apart and answer those questions. Dreamforce in San Francisco, September 12th through 14th. Be sure to attend to that if you can. There's also the Salesforce Plus so that you can watch it if you cannot physically attend. So
look, there's Max. Did they put? See, he's right there at the left side. Max the Mule.
Yes, Max the Mule is here. Yes. So that's a wrap. Any questions for any of us before we call it? We finished on time. That's awesome. Yeah, very good. Very good. Share the yes. The link is not posted yet, but it'll be at watch on LinkedIn for Ryan's post, and then we'll be blasting it out from there. But otherwise, it will appear on integration.quest. Yeah, Ryan just got it. Okay, it'll also appear on integration.quest. And so it's free. Come on, join us. It's a great session. Let's put everyone, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Everyone come on camera. I think that you can. Can you? Did we set it up?
You gotta stop recording first too.
Okay, let me stop recording.
Yeah, and we're gonna have a group photo. If you